There are so many combat options and tricks in Hogwarts Legacy, some of which a lot of people still do not know of. I decided I'm going to make a video that goes over all the essential and main tips and tricks for combat, everything from spell combos to certain spells and weaknesses for enemies, fun spells to use, potions, and everything in between. That being said, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe down below. And without further ado, let's get into everything there is to know about combat in Hogwarts Legacy with this full combat guide. The first thing to know is Protego. It allows you to block blockable attacks. This means that when you see that yellow marker above your head, you can block these attacks using Protego and don't have to roll out of the way and dodge them. So if you time this right, you will get a perfect Protego, which means you will send back more projectiles than enemies, or you will knock back enemies like this if you have this talent. So Protego Mastery, this talent, if you time it perfectly and get a perfect Protego, it uses a damaging blast against enemies. Next is the roll/dodge. So obviously the dodge is going to be used to dodge unblockable attacks, meaning if you get this red symbol above your head, you can't dodge that attack. Basic attacks deal critical damage on the 4th strike, meaning if you hit an enemy with 3 normal attacks, it's just going to do regular damage. If you hit them with that 4th attack and land it, it's going to do like 3 to 4 times the damage, meaning you always want to hit that 4th shot when you can. And a great talent to have for this, since you use basic cast a lot, is basic cast mastery, which reduces your spell cooldowns. There are a ton of different special attack animations and types, so as you use your special attack against enemies, this is going to be one of the biggest attacks that you have to use against enemies and bosses. There are a ton of different animations you get. The important thing here is you want to keep your special attack meter charged, meaning every 10x hits in a combo, whether it's 10 hits, 20 hits, or 30 hits, you're going to get 2 orbs from it to recharge your meter. If you get above a 50 combo, you can see here, you actually get 3 orbs from then on out, meaning you can recharge it a lot faster, and it's a lot easier this way. Make sure you visit ancient magic spots to actually increase your capacity for these attacks. These ancient magic meter talents for Protego are actually very good, meaning when you pull off a successful one, it adds ancient magic to your magic meter, as well as there's a dodge skill for this. You can see here, if you use combos and stack up combos and hit enemies as well as do that, you'll increase your magic meter very quickly. One of the better attacks in the game is the ancient magic throw, meaning you can throw its objects at your opponents. Make sure when you fight enemies, you throw as many of these objects at your enemies as you can. They do a ton of damage, and it's not like you really need to save them for anything later. Another big part of combat in Hogwarts Legacy is breaking enemy shields. So in order to break an enemy shield, you have to cast a spell that is the same color as their shield. There is a way to get around this though. So once you break their shield, that's great. But if you actually use a curse against the enemy, it will break their shield no matter what color it is. So you can have them slotted even if you don't plan on using them, just to break shields very quickly. Another thing is if you have the Imperio curse, make sure you use it in battles, especially against trolls and bigger enemies, to use them to fight against your enemies for you. You can imagine when you get into big battles versus trolls or other big named enemies, you can take control of them with Imperio and use them to fight your enemies, making sure they also don't attack you at the same time. You can also go to collections, and this is one of the bigger things in the game, and go to your enemy section. This will give you a list of enemies you faced so far, and if you go through them, it will actually tell you for the majority of the time what these weaknesses are for these enemies, meaning you can use the best talents and skills against them to do the most damage. You can see here, one of the weaknesses against a troll is he will run, and if he runs into something, he will fall down. Or you can use Flipendo against his slam attack, and once you do that, it will flip his club back up into him, knock him down, and while he's knocked down, you get critical damage on any attacks you deal. The Dugbog has a weakness as well. If you actually use Leviosa against him when he does his tongue attack, his tongue will get stuck up in the air, and you can use Defendo as a combo to completely cut it off. All enemies have a lot of big weaknesses like this. You just have to learn them to best figure out how to defeat them easier. The Dugbog, being one of the harder enemies in the game, also has another weakness. If you use a purple skill like Accio against him, once he does his charge attack, he will flip on his belly and you can attack him, and whatever you hit him with will do critical damage. And the final example is spiders having weaknesses. So spiders have a weakness to fire, meaning you can use fire spells against them to deal additional damage. A lot of the different spiders actually have different weaknesses specifically. So there is a burrowing spider that once he burrows, if you use Flipendo while he is burrowing, it insta-kills that spider completely. The other is the big red spider. If you use Descendo against him when he's attacking you, he will get stuck in the dirt, not be able to move, and every hit you do against him will be a critical hit, and it will do a ton of damage to him. The game also shows you dueling feats in battles, which are generally weaknesses against those enemies. Next, we're going to go into spell combos. So spell combos are extremely important in Hogwarts Legacy. There are a ton of great combos. The first one we're going to start off is with Glacius and Defendo. This is by far the best combo in my opinion. You have to slot it now. The same goes for Glacius and Incendio. You freeze the enemy, and then any attack you do with the red spell after that, no matter what the red spell is, does critical damage. Glacius is like the magnifying skill, so once you hit an enemy with them and freeze them, a lot of the attacks are going to do additional damage after that. Another great combo is the transformation spell just by itself, meaning you can transform an enemy into an object and throw it at other enemies to do additional damage to them both, generally almost defeating them both. This becomes really good once you unlock the transformation mastery talent, meaning you turn people into explosive barrels. Another good talent is Accio and Descendo, followed up one after another. You Accio the enemy to you, cast Descendo to slam them into the ground, and it does critical damage against a lot of enemies. You can then combo most of these together to actually Accio an enemy to you, Descendo him, then Glacius followed by Incendio. This basically defeats any regular enemy in the game all by itself. You can do this to almost any enemy in the game and they will definitely not be standing after it's done. Another important charm is Disillusionment, where you can sneak up on enemies and cast Petrificus Totalis, doing an insane amount of damage. Against bosses this does a lot of damage, and against regular enemies this generally takes all of their health away. Another fun spell to use is Accio, but not just regularly. You can fly up on a broom to a high surface such as a cliff or a house and cast Accio on enemies, and if they're together after you select the mastery talent for Accio, it will grab all of them and just drop them right off the edge. Also, Depulso is fun, where you can line enemies up against an edge. Because fall damage is so insane in this game, you can just line enemies up against an edge, cast Depulso. You can even Levioso them, so that way they're floating in the air, and cast Depulso. And once they fly over the edge, even if they only fall this small distance, you can see this does 5,000 damage. Nobody surviving that. The biggest combo in this game is the Avada Kedavra combo, meaning when you cast Cruci on an enemy and curse them, you can regular attack them, spread that curse to every enemy, and then use Avada Kedavra, which will then destroy any cursed enemies. Those are two mastery talents you need to have, and I'll go ahead and show you those right now. So you could select a regular talent that will curse enemies on cast, so like Expelliarmus, you can cast and curse an enemy. Spell knowledge is also important. It makes the game way easier and much more fun and usable. So unlock these spell knowledge talents so you can cycle through spells and not have to wait on cooldowns every 2 seconds. Also, Wiggenweld potency I really like, meaning if you heal, you're going to actually be able to heal full health every single time. Other important items are attack items. So Venomous Tentacula is important for crowd control. If you have the talents for this, it becomes very OP. You can throw out one, it throws out two automatically, so it gives you an additional one. And it crowd controls and attacks enemies from a distance, meaning it is basically really powerful and should be used. Another attack item that's important are Chomping Cabbage. They're extremely effective. And again, with the right talents, you can run through enemies like nothing. I mean, super quickly. It's extremely powerful. And this video right here, also linked in the description, is going to show you how to get a ton of those very easy. Another final item is the Mandrake. So the Mandrake is, again, a crowd control and large damage item against multiple enemies. Not only is it used for crowd control, it can be used to incapacitate enemies, meaning when you attack an incapacitated enemy, you can see you deal additional damage and critical damage against them, which is super useful. Next is potions. So some important potions are the invisibility potion. This makes it so any enemy loses track of you and you can just walk up behind them and use Petrificus Totalis to do a ton of damage. Once you use an invisibility potion, like I said, they cannot see you, and it works even longer when you have the talent for it. So that being said, you can walk up, do a ton of damage, and get rid of a ton of enemies this way, and it's super fun. Another important potion is the Thunder Brew potion, which creates a storm around you and stuns enemies. The Focus Potion, which reduces the drinker's spell cooldowns. Two other important potions are the Maxima Potion and the Edurus Potion. So the way these work is the Maxima potion actually does extra damage. You can see when I attack here, I did 32 damage. When I drink the potion now, I do 64. That's double the damage. Use this against bosses and you'll have absolutely no problem defeating them. Another important potion is the Eudoros potion, meaning you deal reduced damage by a lot. If you actually have the talent, you become invincible for the amount of time that you have this potion activated. You can see he's attacking me, doing 0 damage. These are some of the talents you can use to upgrade these potions and the potency, and also other things like Mandrakes, Chomping Cabbage, and Venomous Tentacula. Once you get all these done, these increase your level to be able to play with these items a lot. And not only that, it becomes basically effortless at that point. Other important talents are stealth talents. So you can use a stealth build, which these talents will help you in order to not become detected and do additional damage to enemies. Other important things for combat are your skills and traits, as well as your gear. So you can see your gear. You want to make sure you upgrade your gear as much as possible whenever possible, because you get offensive and defensive stats for both pieces, meaning it can end up doing a lot more damage than you would be able to without them. And traits are also important because you can do additional damage with all these traits, and you can stack all the traits, meaning if you just want to put Confrigo traits on all your gear, Confrigo will do an insane amount of damage and probably one-shot enemies. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel, and check out either of these videos on the right and subscribe on the left if you didn't listen to me 5 seconds ago. That being said, thank you guys.